So you want to play guitar. Should you get an acoustic? Or an electric? Or classical guitar? Let's dive in. Many people, including a lot of teachers, believe that everyone should start on acoustics. In my opinion, that's flat out wrong and too simplistic.
They're all crazy and want less competition out there.
Really though, there's a lot of things to consider before you decide what you should buy. First and foremost, you should buy the instrument you want to play and love the sound of the most. That will inspire you to play more, which is the number one most important factor in gaining impressive skills quickly. If you're super into Megadeth, why would you buy an acoustic? If your favorite band is Acoustic Alchemy, why would you buy an electric guitar? Okay, so what's so bad about starting on acoustic anyway? Glad you asked. Number one, the strings are bronze coated, which is much tougher on your fingers. The action is higher in general. Learning bar chords is murder and will straight up cause some people to call it quits very early on. I've seen it happen. Bar chords are bad enough on electric. If you want to learn how to solo eventually, it's exponentially harder on an acoustic to bend and use finger vibrato. It can even lead to arm cramps, tendonitis, and carpal tunnel. Acoustic guitars only have one volume, which is fairly loud. If you're going to be practicing while others are sleeping or live in an apartment, this may restrict how often you can practice or the times you can practice. Something to think about. Let's get creative. Yes, the first two problems I mentioned can be minimized by restringing your guitar with lighter gauge strings or even putting electric light gauge strings on your acoustic. I've done that before and it sounds a little different, but it takes a lot of struggle out of it. Playing on acoustics does not generally train your picking hand to mute the strings that you're not playing. So later, if you're playing electric guitar on distortion, it is difficult for some people to learn to mute those strings when they've only played acoustic for a while before that. If you don't mute properly, it will sound terrible. On distortion, any tiny sound becomes amplified to be almost as loud as the notes you're actually playing. It could range anywhere from annoying squealing to complete cacophony. Electric. So none of these problems exist if you start on the electric guitar. But there's got to be something wrong with electrics, right, Brian? Yes. You are going to need to buy an amp or a portable unit with headphones, though. The Amplug Headphone Guitar Amp series is a cool product. They plug into the guitar's jack, provide distortion, tone controls, and a headphone jack. They go for about $50. Combo amps start around $80. You are going to have to haul that around everywhere you want to play the guitar, so make sure and get a small one. You can always turn it almost all the way down to practice quietly at home, and some even have a headphone jack. Now listen up, this is important. Stay away, far away, from any guitar with a whammy bar or vibrato arm, unless you're prepared to spend $600 on your first guitar. I wouldn't either. I haven't found anything under that range that stays in tune halfway decent. You have enough to worry about learning guitar without having to deal with floating tremolos. Get a locked bridge. It has added sustain and is simple. Most electrics come pre-installed with 10 gauge strings, a little heavy to bend. I would advise restring it immediately with light gauge strings. Don't make it any harder on yourself than you need to. But when you do want to make it harder on yourself, I heard Al Di Meola plays with gloves on for hours, then rips them off and watch those fingers fly! If you want to take your guitar camping or somewhere without electricity, you're not going to be able to bring your amp. Unless, of course, it takes batteries. This amp does. It's a Roland Microcube, so that's a cool little feature. And don't even think about playing your electric unplugged outdoors. It's almost silent. You will not be able to hear it. Nobody will. There's actually a third option, which doesn't enter into the conversation nearly enough. Classical guitar. Its strings are made of nylon, not steel, so it's much easier on the fingers. Legato is excellent, so hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. The strings are slightly further apart, and it doesn't have as much sustain, but it sounds great. Yes, you are allowed to use a pick on a classical guitar. They will not burn you at the stake. At least I hope not. Actually, one of my best songs, Farewell to the King, on this channel is completely picked, and it's played on that Cordoba acoustic you just saw. I hope this video was informative, and that you now have enough knowledge to make the correct choice for your first guitar. Electric. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification icon. I have a ton of lessons and performances coming right up. We are just getting started. See you soon.